John Mediana, the one and only.
Let's go.
The brand master himself.
Hey, brand master, I'll take it.
Thanks
I didn't call me. I didn't call me that. You called me.
I called you that. Man, make that some of your brand value right there. Thanks for coming by today, man.
Of course, brother. Always.
Not only do I get to chop it up and learn about building a brand and all those tactical things, but you helped me reorganize my cameras and get some good audio today.
Ooh,
so
this
thank
place,
you.
by the way, just chef's kiss. I mean, bro, it's like I don't know. It just fits. It fits Impact. It fits Jim. It's like an extension of who you are. You know?
I love it, man. I'm excited. It's good to just have high-level conversations with great people who align with my core values, people who align with my brand. And that's the coolest part about just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think one of the, and I'd love your opinion on this because you go on a ton of podcasts, but what I realized when conversing with people and discussing having them come on, a lot of people are trained or used to or have an expectation that there is a very guided conversation to be had. There's certain questions I'm going to ask, things like that. And I don't do that.
Yeah.
I just want to get people in and let's talk about what's on your brain. Let's talk about wherever we go. What's your thoughts on setting up a podcast without an immediate aligned just structure, essentially?
Yeah, I think both and. I'm like a both and person, right? I'm also like a TLA all day person, test, learn, adapt, right, type of person. I think it also matters with your guests, right? Like if you got synergy, if you got, someone on the show that, hey, you're just always, you always hang out with, you're always aligned. It's kind of easier and natural to have those conversations. But I always think of audience first. Like you always want to think of audience first. What does that mean? That means what is your audience going to get out of this conversation? What can you pull out of your guest that is going to bring massive value, in throughout the whole podcast as a whole, but also like think about like what are those one clips, those short form content that people are going to consume on social media. Can you set it up? Like, is it a question that you have that they could answer like in 60 seconds or less? Is it something that a conversation that you really want to dive into that they're expert in or they have authority in? Those are things, and it's good to kind of have like a loose format. I don't like a tight format of like, all right, well, here's my 4 questions that it's good to have that to kind of guide as the outline, but really you want to read the room. You really want to read the guests and kind of like tug on some strings, and it really helps kind of guide more of a natural conversation. I'm more of a natural conversation guy. You just like me is very relational. Like I love one-on-one conversations. I love really getting to the problem and solving that problem specifically. It might not work for everybody, but for that person, I'm solving that problem for them at that very moment. So I really enjoy that. I think that's my strength too, is really solving those the specific asked question, right? So
Totally. Yeah. I love it. So you said you're an and/or guy. Was that the phrase?
It was a both and.
Both and.
Yeah,
I like
both
it.
and guy.
Well, I think to your point too, and this is what I've learned in the last year of doing this is it's a skill to be the host. Yeah. It's a skill to lead the direction of the conversation. And at first, when I started doing podcasts, like I would just let the person flow. Mm-hmm. And what I realized was there has to be some type of deep dive into a specific nugget, like you talked about the short form content. Like let's stay there. Let's dive into that. Yeah. Or there has to be some type of misalignment or question or opposition or
there has to be some friction, right?
Yes.
A little friction, like a little tension. Tension's good, by the way. There's healthy tension and there's toxic tension, right? Toxic tension is the one that you're just like, it's not going to work. It's just really sabotaging.
It's a different type of energy.
Different type of energy. It's more on the lower frequency kind of energy grind, where it just makes everything just feel like a struggle. There's no flow state to it. When you have healthy tension, there's some sort of flow because it pushes you forward. Now, if you're comfortable, like these seats right here, they're so comfortable, right? And it kind of just makes me want to just chill. and I honestly could just sit in this couch and just talk all day. but there's no movement happening because I'm just super comfortable. So healthy tension is the thing that creates movement because you're uncomfortable a little bit, but then you get to have an indicator. So healthy tension is an indicator, right? And then you get to set the thermostat, not a temperature. Like, when you look at, a thermometer, it's a temperature checker, and you're like, okay, well, healthy tension pushes you to set the temperature, right? So healthy tension is really good because it creates movement from one place to another. You go from A to B, and you're not just stuck at A, and you're just spinning in circles. That toxic tension is going to whirlwind into a spiral of just disaster. But the thing about healthy tension, I feel, is just like whirlwind up to movement and going somewhere. And yeah, so that's so important.
Totally. And it's funny that you bring up, I'm reading this book that talks about moments.
Yeah.
And it talks about understanding all the sensory aspects. And it's funny you brought that up because I want the room to feel comfortable. I want you to be able to lay your arm out, which is body language that says you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I actually noticed every single person I've had on this podcast has done what you've done.
Yep.
Which is good because I want that level of comfortability where you can create body language that I know you're comfortable, so we can dive into some of these conversations that do have some tension, because I don't want to invite people here and have a controversial conversation that you feel attacked.
Yeah, some people,
and I think that's the difference.
You know what? Some podcasts, and I'm glad you brought this, whether it was unintentional or intentional, I think it was your subconscious saying, get the long couch for your guests and get the host seat for you, because that puts, number one, it puts you in a place of authority as the host.
Yep.
Right? Where you're just like here and you're just, dialing in. It's almost like if you've ever been in a therapy session, right? Your therapist is really the assessor. They're assessing the situation, right? And then you got your person that needs to feel as comfortable as possible so that they could let it out. If you're not comfy, if you are stiff, if you are anxious, if you're nervous, you're not in flow state. You know what I mean? And a lot of podcast hosts sometimes make the experience for the guests so uncomfortable on purpose to create unneeded necessary tension so that they could pull out a viral moment or something of aggravation out of their guests. And I'm just like, that's just not the way.
Feels set up.
It's a setup, and they do that intentionally.
I don't want to be set up. I don't think one of my guests want to be set up.
No.
And I think that's just a level of respect for who I'm having on here.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't, catch you on the news and ask you how the breakup with your wife went.
Yeah.
That's not the divorce. Like, that's not what this is about. Absolutely. This is about creating a comfortable atmosphere so we can have a comfortable conversation and respectfully dive into some differences of opinions with an understanding of where they come from, where I come from, and how we overly position this topic or this idea to our audience.
Yeah.
That, to me, is a state of comfortability, even with opposing opinion or ideas around it.
Yeah.
So it's just funny you brought it up, because that's what I want to do more in my live events is how do we create an oddball effect, and how do we disrupt the industry, but do it in a comfortable way,
right,
to where you can still be yourself, but look at things just a little bit different.
I love that. And that's what I love about your events, by the way. Like, we come in and it is a inviting environment. It is low key. It feels like it doesn't feel corporate-y like the events that we typically go to, where everyone's like ready to hand their business card to you, right? It's fun because there's like snacks, food, there's music, there's a vibe. There's like this last one that we went to at the brewery, right? It was just a vibe. I'm like, oh snap, you could have an event here. Like, you got the cafe lights hanging. You got like the energy in the room is good. You got these really high level entrepreneurs, and you're literally having conversations with the keynote speakers right there before the event, which a lot of times these events, they gatekeep the speakers and hide them in a VIP room, in a green room, and they're just so disconnected with people. People actually have conversations at your events. you know, which is awesome. Sometimes it's like, all right, we got to kick you out now because y'all are just hanging out, you know.
That was this last event. The guy's like, hey, it's 4:00 in 15 minutes. Hey, it's 4:00 in 5 minutes. Hey, it's 4:05.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, we got to really go.
Yeah.
But that serves to the energy of the room. And, you know, speakers willing to have those conversations, which there's a lot of speakers that put themselves on a pedestal and refuse to. Yeah. It's just the reality of the industry, which is fine. But how do we break through that? How do we actually give people an opportunity to build a relationship and maybe ask some questions and then make a decision to work with that coach or that speaker or that consultant? Yeah. Whereas I've gone to events where it's like, right now you need to make the decision in the next 15 minutes. And it's like, I've seen this person for the first time for 41 minutes. Yeah. In the first 15, they were telling me about their life story, which is their story. And I don't know anything really more about them or if they've helped a specific client in my specific situation. But I've got 15 minutes to get this $3,000 discount.
Oh my gosh. It's so annoying.
And people do it and then they regret it. And I don't want to sell a product or a service or consult on a business that I've forced someone to make an immediate decision and I've got them. Yeah. And now that you've paid me and you're stuck with me. Yeah. Like it needs to be a mutually beneficial conversation. And that conversation typically should start with asking questions to see if I could help their business, not coerce them into scarcity mindset and buy to save thousands of dollars. Now, of course, that is a strategy. And I think that in order for me to roll out certain programs, I need to have an early buy-in that's capped. And then we can increase price or we can do add-ons. Yeah. But to just run that program strategically off, hey, buy it in 15 minutes or it's gone.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of gaslighting a little bit. You know what I mean? I think, you know what's so different that I love about the way you approach events, specifically how Jim Morris approaches events. He talks about a lot of times how you think about the audience and you think about disrupting the event space. But more so, I personally think you're not just disrupting the event space, you're disrupting keynotes, the speaker space, because what you're doing is holding them accountable and you're challenging speakers that come onto your stage, on your platform that you're giving them, right? And you're saying, this is what the audience needs because you're so audience first minded that you're not just challenging the event space, you're challenging the way speakers run their keynotes. And you're saying, we're not selling, we're giving value. What does it look like to do that in this amount of time? So you're not going up there like a typical keynotes because you've been to so many events, so many spaces where it just feels like one big commercial just for their product so that they could put more people in their funnel. And they're like, well, can I, like, give me your email list? And like, you know, like all the just, I guess, like just bullshit that people do, you know?
You know what I realized? I realized that a lot of folks, including myself, and this is through a lot of conversations. This isn't just me coming up with this idea. This is through a lot of conversations with a lot of people. A lot of people are purchasing the proximity to celebrity, which is, and I'll tie this back, which is they're purchasing their brand, their personal brand. They're not purchasing an outcome that they're seeking for their business. Wow. So what they're doing is saying, okay, this person is a celebrity. They've got 2.6 million followers. They are hanging out with all these other celebrities. They're cool. I want to be that person, so I'm going to buy their personal brand. I'm not actually buying an outcome that's needed for my specific business in this specific moment.
So do they try to fast track their way into stardom, right, in the industry? Like they're playing the game of like, I could buy this person's audience, I could buy this person's, because if I'm affiliated with them, now I have their attention. Instead of having built their audience from the ground up organically and saying, you know what if I just give value and I become the person of influence?
It's the shortcut.
It's the shortcut, right?
And the pay to play. And don't get me wrong, I've paid to play. I've paid to get in the rooms. But here's the biggest, and then my biggest takeaway. I've paid to be in rooms to find out what this industry does, to make sure that I create and disrupt in my own way. So the good things I've paid and I've gotten great insights, but I've also learned a lot of the other things that I don't want to do. Right. And I don't want to continue positioning and being the conduit that has a platform that allows those things to happen. Because I see it. I see the person who goes from this conference to this conference to this conference, and then they don't have money because they're not building the outcome they want for their business. They're trying to buy that proximity. So in turn, you have to do the work. Yeah. You have to have a good product. Mm-hmm. You have to go through the reps. You have to get the feedback. You have to pivot. You have to fine tune. You have to expand.
Yes. Yeah.
But through that process, you need to be positioning yourself so that you're learning and growing to what your audience wants, not what someone who has a celebratory brand is telling you your audience wants, because your product is unique and different. That's why you created it. That's why you're an entrepreneur, and that's why you want to impact people, because typically it's something that's not out there, or it's something that you're enhancing that is out there. Absolutely,
man. That what you just said reminds me of the book called Steal Like an Artist. I don't know if you ever read it. It's a small book. It's by Kyle Leon, and Steal Like an Artist is basically the premise of it is that good artists borrow, great artists steal. And I know it sounds like, well, that sounds terrible. Right? That's such a bad kind of advice. But let me explain to you what steal means. Right? When you steal like an artist, you're taking something and you're taking ownership. That's what stealing. You take something and you make it your own, right? So like you're now ownership. You're owning it now. So when we go through life, with your personal brand, like what you just said about going to events so that you know what to do and what not to do, how you're filtering. So you're stealing or taking, right, from your experience, and you're filtering it through your personal brand and your values and your ethos, and you're creating something new. What we call in hip hop a remix. You're remixing something to present something because you're an artist, right? So every person is an artist. Every person has a personal brand. Everything that you've experienced in life is remixed and presented in a way. Your outputs is a remix of everything that you put in. Your inputs.
Yep. Totally.
So your experience in life, when you go to different events, when you pay to play, when you have, X, Y, Z, name it, it is filtered through, well, I like this and I don't like this. I'm going to expand on this idea, or I'm going to not use this idea. And it's a bunch of give and take and push and pull. And when you present your event, or when you present your product or personal brand, it is the best of the things that you filtered out that worked and what didn't work. For example, this podcast room. See this right here? See the black 3D abstract art? See the neon signs? Let me tell you, this isn't a new concept, right? It's not new. But why didn't we go with the whites? Why didn't we go with wood panels? Why didn't we go with different lights, right? It's because you filtered through these ideas and said, this is more of my brand.
Yep.
This is more of my brand. I like this in my brand. And you created an experience that we get to experience today. Like why didn't we go with black instead of brown, right? The choices that you intentionally made was filtered and remixed to present something that we get to experience today. And I feel like that's what those events are. And you got to go through the testing, learning, and adapting. You have got to go through events. If you're in the event space, go to as many events as possible and steal like an artist.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, too, you talk about the remix and then reproducing. That is creating.
That is
the art of creating. Because if you look at anybody, and it really boils down to this. Someone was like, oh, well, you heard that from this person or that person. I'm like, but this is what it means. The same statement can be the same exact words, but how I explain it. So I'll give you an example. One conversation away from changing the trajectory of your life. Someone's like, oh, you took that from Ed Milet, one more. And I was like, no, I don't agree with one more. Should I do one more line of Coke? No, I might die. Should I have one more drink and get in my car? No, I might crash and kill someone, right? So like, I don't look at it as one more concept. Right. I look at it at one unique experience that could happen based on all the experiences and all the things you've showed up and done for. It's just, you just haven't hit that one thing that could change the trajectory of your life yet. That doesn't mean to go do more. Yes. All it says is you may just be early.
Yeah.
How I explain that and why you should show up to things to potentially increase the odds of that one conversation is different than saying do one more everything, one more, keep pushing. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to do one more thing and fucking break?
Right.
It takes one more thing. It takes one more weight to lift to rip your bicep in half, right? So how I perceive that and how I portray that is drastically different than how Milet may. There may be an underlying concept that I agree with, and there is, right? Like show up that one more time. I get that, but I'm using it in a phase of you already have been showing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just hasn't been the right time for that one conversation to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the similar phrase, but how it's portrayed and regurgitated and explained is different based on my unique experiences, based on my unique history, based on all the things that I've gone through in life.
Yeah.
So I think it's everybody. The concept that I was mentioning was like people educate do we educate ourselves? Yes. Okay. Do you read books? Yes. Then you've regurgitated what someone's created at one point.
That's right.
And you can't say you're original because there is a piece based on that experience. Now, here's the other thing. You may read the same book as me, but I could explain it completely different because there's 180 pages in that book.
That's right.
But the concepts that are important to you and what you need in that time and how you heard it and understood it, it could be completely different than how I have. Yeah. It's the concept of read the same book one time today, read the same book in 6 months, same period of time, whether it's 20 pages a day, you're going to have two completely different experiences with the same piece of literature. Absolutely. Based on your experiences in that moment, in that time, what you're feeling, what you're battling, and all of it.
Yeah. I went to film school for 6 years. Not a lot of people know this story because they look at me and they're like, who is this guy? Like, he just showed up. I don't know.
He just showed up.
Like, hey, overnight success happens over 20 years.
You just showed up.
I just showed up.
Came out from underneath that rock.
Yeah. And, like in my industry, when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling video, you get these video people or these photographers and creatives, and they're like, well, who is this guy? He just came out of nowhere. It's just like, you have no idea, But what I learned in film school, and this is a powerful word that I want people to take away, is this thing called context. Context is key. So from Ed Milet saying one more, well, of course he's going to say one more, right? So I'll play a little devil's advocate. Of course he's going to say one more because his background, right? In context, he's like, one more rep, one more sales call. Don't be a little bit he, of course, in context to his audience that are like, sales, gym, let's go. Like a lot of those.
I mean, they sell life insurance.
They sell life insurance,
That's
right?
exactly exactly the character that you need to
right?
be. Yeah.
So the persona and character that you aspire to be is the one more guy, or the one more gal. I'm just going to make one more phone call. I'm going to make one more. So for context, his audience was like, they eat that up. But on the flip side, like what you said, is that at the detriment of what? Your health, your insanity, your
getting home on time to spend dinner with your wife, or do you want to make one more phone call to make one more dollar?
Right. And the context is key, right? So in context, when we talk about personal branding, every single person has a personal brand. Every single person has a unique story, a unique background. And here's the thing that someone said to me when I was growing up. They're like, you know what, John? You would love someone different if you knew their story. You would help someone differently if you just knew their story. Mm-hmm. And everybody lives, and here's the fact, we all live in a judge a book by its cover world. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just how we're wired. Yep. Right? The first impression, the thing that you see online, you go to your social media and like they'll be like, oh, I know what this guy's all about. He's from this like Chicago, he's from LA, and he's just, I know what he's trying to sell me and stuff, but you don't know the context, you don't know the story. And I think what we need to kind of continue to promote is context and learning and sitting and listening to people and understanding that they're unique, they're uniquely made and designed, and that their history and their experience is the unique value proposition that they bring to the world. So you could be in the same industry in sales or events or anything like that, but this person's going to resonate more with this person to somebody because of what? Context. they went through the hardships and battles, and you feel aligned. And I always say, and I got this from my friend Sean, so it's not me. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You know what I mean? So like everything that you put out there in the world.
Shout out Sean Cannell.
Shout out my boy Sean. I don't know why I said it like that. My boy Sean Cannell. It's like a DJ. Anyways.
So that story of contact, I'm going to share a story with you.
Yeah.
So in Boston, walking down Huntington Ave, one of the main roads, it's 3:30 in the morning. We're in our early 20s, drinking, partying. We're walking to the 7-Eleven to get food.
Yeah.
Drunk, whatever. And man, this is such a powerful story. So we're walking down the street, and my friend Bach, B-A-K, Stephen Bach, he's with me, best friend. We have the same birthday, been friends since 6th grade. We're walking down the street, and we're coming up to Mission Hill, and there's a lot of homeless people around there. There's a 7-Eleven, there's a pizza spot. And I live right down the street. So we're walking up, and this homeless guy comes up to us. And he says, hey, man, typical, hey, man, you got $1? You got $1? I need $1. And my friend Bach turns around, and he goes, hey, man, do you have $1? Do you have $1 that I could have? And the guy pauses. He takes out all the stuff out of his pocket. I think he had like 37 cents. And he goes, hey, man, I don't have $1, but I have 37 cents here.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was just blown away. I just got goosebumps again. But what that told us was that guy was willing to give us, dressed in nice clothes after the night at the club, 2 young kids, his last 37 cents just because we asked for it. And in turn, we were expecting something completely different. We were expecting, no, I'm homeless, or I need this money. What are you talking about?
Right.
But what that told us was that was a good guy. So what we did was we brought him in the 7-Eleven and said, fill your pockets with anything you want. It's on us.
Wow.
And here's the even cooler part of the story. The guy didn't even fill his pockets. He just picked up 2, 3, or 4 things that he could put in his hands.
He took what he needed.
And it was like, man, that's context right there. Like, I judged that person that they were just going to be like, I need the money, and why are you asking me for money? No, that was a good person who said, hey, if this guy's asking me for the money, I'm going to give him everything I have because he probably needs it.
Yeah.
And in turn, what did he get out of all that? He got dinner for, that night. I mean, of course it wasn't, I wish we could have done more, but again, I was young and it just blew my mind. So the context for that human is I was putting him in that bubble or that box before I heard his story.
Yeah.
And once he showed up of who he was down to the core, he ultimately got what he wanted, but he deserved it.
Yeah.
He should have.
Yeah.
So just that context in that one situation just hit my mind. I'm like, man, that's powerful because we should listen to people's story. And as we were talking to him, he was like, oh, this happened and this happened. And like, I don't think he was that, he definitely had a problem.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think he naturally was just like, I'm going to fuck over my family and become an alcoholic.
It wasn't the guy
you
painted him to be in the very beginning.
Exactly.
I think I think there's so many opportunities happening every single day that we just brush by every day because I think we're just either too busy, distracted. I think we just think about one thing and one thing only. What can I get out of this situation? But if we just stopped and just start looking around and start having more conversations, it's a powerful shift in the way that your life is going to be impacted, not because something's impacting you, but you're also able to create an opportunity of creating impact in the world.
And that natural curiosity, right? Yeah. To say, hey, man, do you have money? Mm-hmm. Put it back in that situation for that person to reflect and show us who they truly are. Yeah. And he had an opportunity and he was like, oh, wait, you need money? And that was his character rather than telling him who he was or judging him or, being that natural, curious person. And I think that's why I love this past live event we did, because it was asking questions to see if we can actually serve and help someone, not sell them something. Yeah. And like the old school sales approach that I grew up in is trash, man. And that's all it is. It's manipulation and how can I get you to buy something rather than like going into it and asking questions to say, hey, do you actually need this?
Yeah.
Is this actually the time you should invest in this for your business? Is this actually going to solve what you need in your business?
So good, man. And one thing I do know about Jim Morris is that you're so intentional about those conversations. Ever since day one, even with the massive event that you put on, just a couple months ago, right? Like the fact that you literally would get on a phone call with everyone that purchased the ticket and ask them specific questions. And if they didn't align with the value that you wanted to bring to the audience and the experience that you wanted to bring, you're like, I'm going to refund your tickets, And
we only had to do that to a couple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think making sure that there's not a cancer in the room of a bunch of people looking to do a bunch of good things, to have a bunch of positive impact is the only way you can protect that culture, that synergy, that cohesion of like-minded folks.
Yeah, I think one thing that another takeaway from that is you don't got to do it like everybody else. And I think that's what people are so afraid of. They're like, well, how did they do their event? I just want to copy paste their success. Come on, whoa. Like, right? People want to copy paste the people that have succeeded, but they've only succeeded because they've tried something different and they said, this is how I'm going to do it. And it was tied to their alignment and their values, so that people try to copy that. They say, and trust me, we've all done it. Like, don't get me wrong.
Oh, I mean, as much as I try to disrupt, I still copied because I've never done it before. Right. And like, and I appreciate you saying like kudos and like how I did that. But for me specifically, just to be raw and real and honest, I copied too much last year. Like I'm so excited about this year because I'm actually in a place where I'm like, no, I'm going to create this from within. I already have the answers and I already know how to do it. Where last year I was really timid. I was scared. I was afraid. There was a lot of money on the line. It's the single most largest risk I've taken in one specific project. Yeah. Right. So like one specific thing, one specific day to invest $240,000. Right. So I did have that fear of, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And I had some ideas that I didn't do. That idea actually was something that I thought of the first week I created the conference, and I didn't do it until 30 days before.
Wow.
Because I was like, oh, I'll just skip it. And then I was like, no, this is what I want to do. This is important. This is what I have to do. Yeah. I'm going to do it. And I have 30 days to call 256 people, but I did it.
You did it, yeah.
Now, not all of them answered, and we all didn't get to have a conversation, but I'll post pictures on my CRM. Yeah. Like, I called every single person, I
think, too, man, like, that says a lot, I think people lack conviction today. Like, what is the conviction? What is the thing that you feel that is like, no, we're going to do it this way and actually execute and do it? I think a lot of people have good intentions, but when it comes to conviction and actually executing on that conviction, there's not many.
And I think that's the thing is, and this was the hardest thing for me, and it still is hard. I go against the grain. A lot of people don't like that. Yeah. And there's more on the other side that can gather and attack. Yeah. Right? So it is lonely. You do feel like you're questioning things all the time because it's just attack, comment. This person says this. This person's talking shit. This person says, hey, you can't do it. This person's like, do you know how many people wanted to see me fail? A good amount. Do you know? And you know how I know? Not because someone's going to come up to Jim and say, hey, man, I thought you were going to fuck that up and you didn't. That's not what they say. What they say is, wow, man, you actually pulled it off. And that word actually is definitive to say that you didn't have faith and you didn't actually want me to succeed because you used the word actually. Yeah. So that means you were on the opposition and I actually did it rather than, hey, man, it's really hard to throw that conference, but you did it, bro. Right. That's a different conversation than you actually did it, bro.
Well, I can't believe you did that. Like, I wasn't rooting for you, but surprise.
And there's a lot of people that I didn't think would use the word actually. And there's a lot of people that did.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But the reality of it is like, these are the things you face when you do things differently. These are the things you face when you try to disrupt. These are the things you face when you have conviction about doing it a certain way.
Yeah.
You know how many people told me, including business coaches that I've paid over $40,000 in 12 months setting, told me not to do this, to play smaller. After their whole coaching program is to play bigger. So it's like, well, that doesn't make sense.
It's like it's like two conflicting ideas. You're saying to play bigger, but then this is too, like, you're saying this is too big. And it's just like, here's one thing I really, and I learned from you too, by doing this event, is a lot of times, like a couple days prior, even a couple weeks, I would dare say, is where people would quit.
I mean, do you know how many people told me, hey, you can just call the venue, see if they'll give you half your money back. At least you're saving X amount of dollars. Hey, you can probably just like do this virtual. And don't get me wrong, there is a time to make a smart decision, especially if it's related to finances. But there's also a time to take a risk.
Absolutely.
And what that risk can do is it can propel you or it can set you back.
Yeah.
But the setbacks prepares for the comeback.
That's right.
I'm not financially free from that conference that I invested all that money in, right? I'm still making financial decisions today. My family doesn't go out and eat dinner the way I did prior to that conference, right? We cook at home. Yeah. But those are risks that I took and was very communicative to my wife, who supported and believed in that to get to the next steps and to keep growing. We're in growth stage. That's right. 34 years old. I decided to do this stuff a year and a half ago. And like, yeah, I beat myself up just like anybody would. Yeah. But I also take a step back, and I did a lot of reflection this past weekend because I was feeling that negative energy. I was feeling that, man, I made these mistakes. I did this, I did that. Shit, I shouldn't have done this. Shit, I shouldn't have gone left. I should have went right. But then I sit back and I go, well, what if I didn't do any of that?
Come on. The what if is like a killer that keeps me up at night. Like, it literally wake me up in the middle of the night and be like, oh. And then I sense that. I'm like, okay, I can't think like that. What if? Because if you live a shoulda, coulda, woulda, if life, then what life is that at all?
It's not your own.
No.
You can't definitively say, I did this and this was what happened and this is what I learned and this is the progression and this is where I sit today. And guess what? I'm not dead, folks.
Hey.
I'm still here.
We're alive, baby.
I got one extra day on this earth when I opened my eyes this morning.
Yeah, we got more than one extra day, baby. We got plans for this year, man. Let's talk about those plans. Let's talk about what you're excited about this year.
Dude, there's just so much going on with just really great partnerships. You included Dr. Justin Mosley. Yes. We're doing the virtual summit coming up.
Let's go.
Which is just, again, in my opinion, a massive disruptor of the industry. I mean, 7 minutes of impact.
Let's get 7 minutes of impact, baby.
Like, who has the audacity, who has the cojones to go to speakers making $10, $30, $50, $75,000 for 45 minutes and saying, hey, 7 minutes to teach the world the most impactful thing about communication, sales, branding, leads, customers. Yeah. And if you can't do it in 7 minutes, you can't be on our platform.
Yeah. That's bold. You know,
that's bold.
That's bold. It's so bold, man. And I'm so, number one, I'm very blessed to be, partnering with you and Dr. Justin on this venture. And I think it just really resonates, just from just the three of our backgrounds, of
True.
Like, what does it mean to make it? Because a lot of times we like to be long-winded and, and really get, like, how many events have we all gone through collective? Like, I could imagine, and just sitting for hours and hours and you leave with like, almost like just like information diarrhea, like you're just like, blah, and then you take no action because there's so much that you're consuming.
Yep.
And it's just like, and then you signed up for 50 things that you're like, oh my gosh, and you're getting junk mail, email all the time after that event. And you're just like, I'm just going to go back to my default mode, which is what was I doing before the conference? What was I doing before the event?
Yep.
And just try to figure out yourself. There's no actionable items most of the time. It's just like, and it's mostly just glorified speakers that want to tell them about their book or their course or their program. And they try to, the hook and all that stuff. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying like, I think it's oversaturated with that because no one's doing things differently because they're cooking. Everyone's saying you got to do it this way. And this is how you get people to buy. And at the end of the day, it's about getting sales and all that stuff. But really, it should be about, well, how do I create impact? And that's why I love 7 minutes of impact. The concept of it is like, you got 7 minutes. Every minute counts. Every second counts. And it's not just to sell something. It's really like, what have you learned through your life experience that you could impart to someone in 7 minutes? And that's the challenge here. And I believe it is different. And I don't know if a lot of speakers are going to appreciate the pressure or, the challenge. But you know what? For those that do take the challenge, I hope you take the challenge as a speaker. I hope you take this challenge.
And it's not to say you can't do this. What it is to position the knowledge that you have, that you go and share with the world in a unique way, in a unique format that has no bearing on how you frame yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the significant difference, okay? And I'll give you an example. And I agree with framing. Don't get me wrong. You're walking into an audience of people who don't know you. You typically would need to frame why they should listen to you or who they are. But we don't want the first 20 minutes of a speech to be how, here's my social media. I've got all these followers, so you should listen to me about social media. And this is what I did. And this is what launched. And this is how I made $1 million. And this. I understand the importance of it. I do it. Yeah. I'm not sitting here talking shit saying that I don't. You need to frame for an audience that doesn't know you so they actually pay attention. But here's the difference with 7 minutes of impact. We just want you to focus on the most impactful thing you can teach someone in 7 minutes. We'll do the framing, and we have the credibility in the impact effect community for people to show up and listen and watch and tell their friends. Yeah. So I'm not leveraging the celebratory, hey, Ed Milet's coming, you should come. Right. I'm leveraging the people in the network based on what I've built and who I'm partnering with to bring those people in the circle to where you don't have to frame and you can just focus on how am I going to change someone's life based on what I've learned. Yeah. And then the other thing is why I like the disrupting this is because if you can't teach something in 7 minutes and blow someone's mind, you shouldn't be on a stage anyways. Even if you get 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whether you're being paid, whether you're not being paid, what it tells me is you don't know your own content enough to solve a big enough problem to help so many other people that you're not a bad speaker. I'm not saying you're a bad speaker, right? And I'm not saying that my way is the only way. But what I'm saying is the true test is for me, and I'm always testing myself, is what's the most impactful thing that you can do or you can provide value or you can teach or you can show. And when I ask other speakers or other professional development consultants, coaches, a lot of them don't have that answer. Well, I do this. No. What do you have conviction about that you can make the largest impact? Well, I do this, and this. And guess what? I used to be that person.
Yeah.
Right? Now I know like my 7 minutes of impact is how do I find aligned people where I can create a system and position your product or service of value, not manipulation through sales. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to teach. And that's who I want to work with. People who like, hey, if I get through this process and this structure and it doesn't align, I'm not going to push and sell this person a product. It's not the right product. It's not the right timing to consume this product that I have to offer. I'm getting excited. I'm moving the mic everywhere.
I love that. Speaking of, this episode is sponsored by Impact Community. Go ahead and sign up The link is in the description below. We'll put a QR code and all that stuff. What is Impact Community, if you don't mind? I know we're not selling, but I actually believe that this is going to help solve your problems in business and community for this year.
So Impact Effect Community is a community. We just launched it on a digital platform where you can introduce yourself, you can build relationships, you can get referrals, and ultimately you get resources. And it's free right now.
Yeah.
So people are going in and sharing, what's a good app for this? What AI am I using? What book did I read and why is it important? And then we've got your calendar, your content calendar. We've got some mindset techniques. I've actually got a full coaching program from someone that donated it. And it linked to all videos and all these other things. So again, the whole community is built on bringing people together that have a shared vision, that have a shared sense of belonging, that are looking to create impact and to do it in an ethical way, an ethical manner, that don't want the interruptions of Facebook, that don't want the advertisements popping up, that are really just trying to get away from the noise and get away from the distractions to focus on what's actually going to impact you and what's actually going to impact your business and ultimately impact our community. And the key word there is our community. It's not Jim's community. It's not John's community. It's not Impact's community. It's our community, because a community is based on what you put in. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, those inputs will relate back to those outputs when you need them and when you need them most.
So make sure you join that community and tune in, because we also put, we do lives on their live streams and stuff. We put a calendar of events. So if you're wondering when the next Impact Effect event is, you'll be notified in there. And there's just so many people like-minded wise that are literally trying to just crush it in their business and in their family life too. There's a lot of people that are, just really focusing on financial freedom for not only themselves, but for their family and all those things. So you're going to get all those free right now. It's free. It's not going to be free for always. let me just say that it's not always going to be free, but for right now, go check it out. And we'll make sure that we put the link in the description and stuff, man. So.
Yeah. And you can get on this podcast. We got a podcast network.
There is a podcast network, right? So we could do like a podcast tour. You ever want to be in a network full of podcasters, like-minded podcasters, that's a great place to connect and jump on each other's podcasts as well.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Awesome, man.